Alright, welcome back to this tutorial. In this training we are going to talk about the settings of the attributes when we are creating or editing an existing attribute. But first, I really hope that you have seen the tutorial in the attributes documentation page. So this one, because we are now going to continue with attribute settings. And after this, after we have created our attributes, we are going to assign the attribute to our product template in this page. And the reason why we need to do this is because in the end we want to create our products, but then we first have to have our product templates in order. So if we go back to Magento admin, to stores, attributes, product, we will now add a new attribute. And we have a lot of different fields here, and I will only cover those that are important to create the attribute. But for all of the other attributes that I'm not covering, please go to this conference page and see or read more. For example, as we can see here, we are in the Properties tab in the left column in Attribute Information. So that means that we are looking at this section in the documentation page. If I scroll down, we have the tab Manage Labels, and that corresponds to this column, and so on. But first, let's create our attribute, and this will be color. So I will be able to create a new t-shirt with the color green, for example. Then we have the catalog input type for store owner. And here we have a couple of different alternatives that we can select. And just to show you a couple of examples, if I go to this product that I have here, I have a couple of different attributes with different field types. For example, if we start with the most basic one, the text field, then we will have an attribute when we create our product that looks like this, where we can enter just a simple text field, just one row of line. Text row goes here, for example. And then we also have a text area. And then we would have an area like this one. But if we want to have a drop down where we can select a predefined set of attributes, attribute options like red, blue, green, for example, then we would have to select a drop down instead. We also have something called multiple select, and this is if you want to be able to choose a couple of different options at the same time. For example, I want to be able to choose low and medium, but not high. Or I want to have all of these three at the same time. We have a couple of more. One that I would like to mention is the yes, no. And this is simple, an attribute where you can choose yes or no on the product. But right now I want to create a color. Therefore, I'm going to choose drop down. And as we can see here, we get a new field here where we can add our options. And it's here where we are supposed to add our colors. For example, red, blue, green. So if I now go ahead and save this, I'm actually going to save and continue edit. If I press save attribute, then I will save the attribute and I will be redirected back to the grid. If I want to save and stay on the same page, I would then click Save and Continue Edit. So what we have right now, if I go back again to my other example, to Fjällräven, and if I go to sleeping bag, or let's go to this bag, let's see if they have color here. Okay, they didn't. But what we enter here in the default label, that's what we are going to see as the label here in Magento admin. And this is also what I'm going to see on the front end as a customer, unless I switch to the Manage Labels tab and I specify something else, another title. So it is possible to have one title on the front end that customers are viewing and having another title or another label in Magento admin. If I go back to properties, where we have added other options, this will correspond to the values in this dropdown, and that will also correspond to what the customer will see on the front end. Here, for example, we have an attribute gender, which is very similar to our color attribute. Actually, here we have color, and this is the option that Fjällräven have added in here. Now you might wonder, what are these other columns that we have here? And you might not have these, and that's because I have currently a multi-site setup. More about multi-sites in Magento, please go to Tutorials and Manuals, Basic Configuration, and Multi-site Management. But if I go back here, if I want, I could have another label or another value for my Swedish store. So for example, blue, the blue option in Swedish is blå. But for the UK site and these two US sites, I actually want to inherit the blue value. So I really don't need to do this, because if I leave these fields empty, they will by default inherit whatever I have in the admin column. The same goes to the manage labels. So this corresponds to what we have here. So color in Swedish would be translated to färg, and to Danish it would be, I guess it's something like this. But for the UK and these two US sites, I actually want to keep my default label, which is inherited from here. We can also enable values required, and this would mean that we would have a mandatory star here, and this would then mean that every time I want to save my product, it will then complain that I need to specify something for this attribute. Otherwise, I can't save my product. And the same goes for product details. Here we see that we have a couple of required values. So that's that. And if we expand the advanced attribute properties, we have a couple of more settings. We have the attribute code, for example, and this is what you will use if you're importing products to Magento through an API or through an import file, but this is a little bit more advanced. We also have what I like to enable is to have add to column options and use in filter options. With these two settings, let's keep them as yes. If we go to products and catalog, if we look here in the upper right corner, we have the columns section here, and here we can actually include our color attribute. And then I can cancel this view, and we will now see that we have color here. Typically I'm having a demo and this is not working. I see though that I have color demo. Still nothing. Okay, here we go. So simply select the attribute that you want to have, and then just click somewhere else in this white area, and you will have your attribute here. You can also use the filter here to search. For example, I only want to see products that are red and that are disabled, for example. So that is why we have these two attribute settings here. If we go back to storefront properties to the left column here, we have a couple of more settings that I like to enable. For example, if you want to be able to search on this attribute, you should enable this setting. If I go to the front end, this means that I would be able to search for example, blue, and this would give me a list of products. If I scroll down a little bit more, I also have another important setting, and it's the use in layered navigation. If I enable this to this filterable with results, that means that if I go to equipment, for example, and sleeping bags, I will be able to have my attribute in the category filter navigation. So that is what this setting is supposed to do. You also have a filter navigation or a layered navigation in the search pages. So if you enable this setting, you should also enable this setting. You have a position value here. That means that you can control in which position in the filter navigation the attribute should appear. The lower number it is, the more to the right it will be displayed. So here we have, for example, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Let me close a couple of tabs. And this you should always enable, used for promo rule conditions. We will talk more about this later, but this will enable you to go to marketing and to promotions and create a price rule so that you can give specific discounts depending on different attributes combinations. And if you want to display the attribute on the front end, for example, if I go back to this sleeping bag, and depending on the design, if you want to display the attribute in a table like this, then you should enable this setting, visible on catalog pages on storefront. We have a couple of more attributes settings I will not cover because we are actually running out of time. This video will be quite long, but for more information regarding the remaining attribute settings, please refer back to the documentation page. Thank you for watching, and in the next tutorial we are going to talk about the product templates, which is the last step before we can create our products. Bye bye!